Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bones. Sounds like he's doing some vague posting / subtweeting, and he's actually just talking about himself. Or maybe Charlie. Okay, so here's today's hot take. Today's hot take is that your story is too big. Stop it, okay? All of you have huge stories, and that's great, and it's wonderful, and maybe one day you'll achieve them and prove me wrong. Me at me. But your story is too big. You don't need 72 characters. That is too many hecking characters. You literally cannot write that, okay? I think, given the current climate of the universe, or I guess just Earth, probably. Yeah, just Earth. You should all be aware of exponential growth and how it can heck you up really hard. That is characters, that is subplots, that is everything. It is very incredibly easy to make your story huge without even realizing it. I did a video forever on scope. Maybe I'll link it. It's very mathy, and I know some of you got very scared about that. But the basic principle is every time you add something, you are making your story exponentially larger. Story growth doesn't happen on a linear kind of way. It's not a straight line. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is exponential. I'm afraid to do exponents because you'll make fun of me. But if you add one main character, you got a pretty solid story. Add another, it doubles. Add another, it quadruples. It may seem pretty tame, pretty controllable when you first start your story and you're in the beginning act and you're like, let's just add a couple characters. Only 12. Only 12 main characters. That's perfectly gonna be fine. That's not gonna mess me up in any way. It's pretty easy to introduce all of these. Clearly it's gonna be... No, it's not. It's definitely not going to be easy for you. And eventually, was going to happen, inevitably, cough cough Sovereign, my first webcomic ever, is you're going to cut some storylines. Zoltar is not going to get a story arc, you are not going to get into his backstory, because your hand hurts and you don't want to draw a comic for 5,000 years, even if you could. Like, okay, if I had 5,000 years, I might want to make a comic, because that would be cool, really long one. But, like, I don't have 5,000 years, and you don't have 5,000 years. So don't do this to yourself. Don't have to make these... Don't force yourself into making these tough choices later, where you're like, man, this main character I added, it's too much. Set it aside. They're getting cut. I don't even care, like, I'm not even gonna get into their backstory, no matter how much my audience wants it. I just literally can't. There's just not enough room for this. And this is my first comic ever, so maybe I should have started small, like Bones has told me 5 million times, but I ignore him because my magnum opus, and this is a huge debate in the webcomic community, do you start with your magnum opus or not? And I say no, you don't start with your magnum opus unless you only have one thing you actually want to write, blah blah blah. Like, don't start with something huge. If you have 12 main characters, that is ridiculous. If you have 5 main characters, it is ridiculous, okay? 5 main characters will make you want to die if you've never written anything before. Like, maybe, like, there is an idea that you can jump into things and it's either sink or swim, forcing yourself into the deep end. You can learn from it. Fine. If you want to jump into the deep end and that's what's going to get you to work and get out of your own way, fine, perfectly fine, do your 5 main characters. But if you love yourself and don't want misery, okay, don't go over 3. Okay, I'd say 2, okay? Like 2 really strong mains and a lesser main who gets kind of a side plot, like a nice C plot story. Okay, have your super main character, have a supporting character because it keeps things nice and interesting, and then have a little side character and, have at it. Okay, when I say big, I mean like freaking huge, okay? Like people online, whenever this debate comes up, where people are like, man, should you start with a big comic or a small comic? I'm always like, a small comic. And they're like, man, I don't want to do small comics. And apparently, a small comic is 300 pages. So, so it's not really small. I think 100 to 300 pages is a very reasonable amount of comics to do. It is a nice, moderately sized story. It's surprisingly small because comics, you need to realize that. Okay, so I did Honey Walls, which is my novel, and it fits nicely into like 300-ish pages. If I was to make Honey Walls into a story, it would definitely be like 700 comic pages. Like, I can pretty much guarantee that I would not be able to just tell that story without like 700 pages. So there is that. Words. I know pictures speak 1,000 words, but that is also fake and a lie because you need way more than what you need in a novel because you know what? Metaphors can speak frickin' 5 million words, and it sure is great to write out your character's thoughts. Man, maybe I just hate thought bubbles, and that's why everything is like a disaster for me. But whatever, okay? Back to the main point of this, which is not to make things huge. Pretty Mouth has 2 main characters. Works fine. Was short. Didn't go over the top as far as page count goes. I still would honestly extend Pretty Mouth if I could go back and do it. Pretty Mouth is another comic I've done. So, like, I've done so many comics. So trust me, please. Please trust me. 9 Point, I literally have like 70 characters, and I hate myself, and Ursula hates me. My marriage is falling apart because I decided to make this huge comic that is impossible. Magpie's like 700 pages, and there's 1 main character. Okay, there's like a few. I don't, who would count as a main character in Magpie? Because there's Amanda. I wouldn't count Trixie. Trixie's a support character. She doesn't really have her own little plot line. There's Chris. Chris, Dennis, Finch. Like 5, maybe. Maybe I'll say 5. 5 and then some sub characters. And see, 700 pages. It gets out of control really fast. Really small stories, like as far as comics go, they balloon. Okay, again, exponential growth is what I'm talking about here, and it doesn't come down specifically entirely to the amount of characters that you have, because obviously you can have throwaway characters, and maybe that's something you're working into your story. However, okay, characters will make your things balloon. Locations will make your story balloon. The more locations you start adding to things, the wilder stuff will get. That was another problem with Sovereign, is we wanted to go to 1 million locations, and that just made the script so long before I cut it down and decided I wanted to start anew in a new world. Other things that'll make it balloon is arcs. So you can have 1 character who has multiple story arcs, and that'll be a pain in your butt too, because arcs are the worst. Arcs are like the main offenders for exponential growth within your story, right? Like if you have a character arc and like a location-based arc and a event-based arc, and they're all just for 1 character, you've ruined your life. This is all I'm saying, is if you're making a comic and you have like 50,000 arcs to deal with, you've just ruined your entire life. Like, you no longer are a person, you are a task, you are working on your comic. I just quoted my own book. I just stole a metaphor for myself. I feel annoyed. I do it all the time because I write so much, and then you reread the thing over and over and over again until these phrases are burned into your mind. So I'll just like speak in Honey Walls. So like, not a person, but a task. That's like, it's from Honey Walls, isn't it? I don't know. Why do you guys follow me? Yeah. Don't hate yourself. Be kind to yourself and write a shorter story. Okay? I know it sucks. It sucks. It hurts. It hurts in your soul if you have to cut something from your story. You know, I'm editing a story right now. I feel like I'm always editing a story right now. It's because I've written so much, but I've avoided editing for years. So here we are. But I'm editing. And it hurts, okay? Like, even the smallest little joke, I'll make a joke in the story, and I love this joke. And it just doesn't work. It no longer works with the character. The character's changed. The joke is gone. It is unsalvageable. I can't leave it in there, I just can't. It ruins things. But I love the joke, and I'm sad, and you have to get rid of it. And sometimes you have to get rid of entire characters, entire plot arcs. And it's better to do it sooner than later, okay? Don't invest all your time in something huge. Bring things back, cut things down, and don't switch projects either on me, okay? I'm asking, okay, what I am begging of you, I am you from the future who has carpal tunnel because of what you have done. What I am begging you is not to switch your project, but to trim it down a bit, okay? There is inevitably going to be, if you have 50 characters, there is inevitably one character, well, I guess two characters that you can merge together into one character, and it will make your story infinitely stronger, okay? Cut out some of the flab, combine things. Some of your locations probably can work as a single location. Some of your plot arcs are not necessary. You don't need a romantic subplot for everybody, okay? Like, you can pare things down. I don't want you shifting to another project that has a smaller scope. I want you to smollen. What's the word to make things small? Shrink. I want you to shrink the scope of your current work, okay? I want you to make it smaller. That is the task, okay? Don't just be like, well, I am screwed. I have made this far too large. Make it smaller, okay? It is physically possible for you to shrink, okay? Smallify the scope of your story, okay? You can do this. I believe in you. I say that often. I don't even know you, but I know I'm capable, and I'm not that great. So you're probably infinitely more capable than I am of smallifying the small. Your story will be small. And by small, I mean like hundreds of pages long instead of thousands, okay? Just be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Wash your hands. Take your medication. What are some other things we should do? You give a high five to a really cool dog. Unless you don't have a dog. I guess you can't really go out in the streets meeting strange dogs right now. Find a picture of a dog and high five that if you don't, okay? Just pretend it's a real dog. That's what we'll do. Thank you so much for watching. Maybe one day I'll be good at this. All right, goodbye. I didn't hit stop.